The City Council looks forward to your input on the important topic, implementation of body-worn and patrol vehicle camera program for the Daly City Police Department. First of all, I'll take a minute to review our process for conducting the meeting this evening. The May 5th, 2021 special council meeting is a special meeting with one agendized item: implementation of body-worn and patrol vehicle camera program for the Daly City Police Department. In accordance with the Brown Act laws governing special meetings, the City Council is not authorized to speak or take action on any other item in this meeting. The meeting will start with staff presenting the staff report on this item. Then following the presentation will be followed by public comment on this item, followed by the City Council deliberation and then the City Council vote. I also want to review how public comment on the item this evening will work, so it can work optimally for everyone. So for those who met the registration deadline to speak at the meeting via Zoom, we will use the raise hand feature in order to organize any public comments. During the public comment period, staff will ask those members of public who wish to comment to click the raise hand feature to raise your hand to speak on the agenda item. For those joining by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. Please note that members of the public must wait for staff's prompt in connection with the agenda item before using the raise hand function. Also important, staff will announce the name of the last person whose hand was raised upon calling for the public comment, and that person will be the last verbal comment for the item. If any additional speakers queue up after the last called speaker, you will be asked to email your public comment to cityclerk@dalycity.org to be added to the record and shared with the City Council following this meeting. When you hear your name called, staff will send you a request to unmute your microphone and you may begin speaking. While each person is normally allotted a maximum of 2 minutes to speak, I will be allowing up to 3 minutes for members of the public to share their comments regarding this evening's important agenda item. When your 3 minutes have been reached, you will be asked to conclude your comments. Should you continue to speak beyond the time limit, you will be muted to allow for all members of the public to provide public comment for this evening. I know that this is a challenging time for many of our residents and community members, and I want to acknowledge that. So I do have a responsibility and duty to ensure that this meeting is conducted in an orderly manner. And so I would like now to, I'd like to call the special City Council meeting on May 5th, 2021 to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. My flag was moved. I was like, where did it go? It's usually behind me. Okay, so may we have a roll call, please, Madam City Clerk?
Mr. Buenaventura,
Present.
Dr. Rod,
Present.
Ms. Di Giovanni,
Present.
Mr. Sylvester, Ms. Manalo,
Present. Thank you very much for the roll call. We are now moving on to communications. We have one agenda item: implementation of body-worn and patrol vehicle camera program for the Daly City Police Department. Chief Hensley, you now have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. The staff report I will talk about tonight will seek approval for implementation of body-worn and patrol vehicle camera program for the Daly City Police Department. Staff is recommending City Council approve the implementation of a body-worn camera and patrol vehicle camera program for the Daly City Police Department and authorize the city manager to execute an agreement in a form acceptable to the city attorney to purchase the body-worn cameras through the purchasing cooperative Sourcewell. In May of 2016, San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury issued a report regarding the use of body-worn cameras by law enforcement and recommended local agencies develop an appropriate implementation plan to be publicly presented by November 30th, 2016, and implemented no later than October 31st, 2017. In its response, the city agreed it would voluntarily implement body-worn cameras when funding became available. In 2019, at the city manager's recommendation and with city council's support, the city began exploring the feasibility of a half-cent sales tax measure on the 2020 ballot to address the community's safety concerns, including body-worn cameras. Measure Q passed with tremendous support from our community. At the February 27, 2021 City Council retreat, body-worn cameras were identified as one of the top 3 priorities for the upcoming fiscal year budget. At the March 15th, 2021 Measure Q Town Hall, staff recommended proceeding with the implementation of body-worn cameras for fiscal year 2021-2022. At the April 26th, 2021 regular City Council meeting, the City Council stated their intent to implement a body-worn camera program immediately and directed staff to present program information for their review and consideration. Body-worn and vehicle cameras are devices that record official interactions between the public and the police department staff. The use of these cameras has proven useful in building relationships with the community and by increasing transparency, and it reinforces the accountability amongst officers and community members during official contacts. Cameras have been shown to reduce and resolve complaints and officer-involved incidents and improve community interactions. Additionally, recorded content is widely relied upon as investigative evidence, improving successful prosecutions. The Daly City Police Department is supportive of implementing a body-worn camera and vehicle camera program, as it will enhance our operations and continue to foster a collaborative relationship with our community. We previously began researching this program, and we have collaborated with other agencies to support expedited acquisition and implementation. There are several aspects associated to acquisition, but presuming the use of a cooperative purchasing agreement in place of a formal request for proposals process, the department believes we could implement and deploy a camera program in the field within 4 to 6 months of approval of this request. Upon authorization to proceed with the implementation of the program, the city proposes to engage in the procurement of the body-worn cameras with Axon Enterprises through Sourcewell, a cooperative purchasing resource. The California Government Code authorizes public agencies to participate in a cooperative purchasing agreements while still adhering to the city's municipal code and adopted rules and procedures for procurement of goods and services. By utilizing a cooperative purchasing program, the city can streamline the process of procuring a vendor for the body-worn cameras and vehicle camera program and expedite program implementation. The body-worn cameras is a purchase eligible for procurement and installation through the purchasing cooperative Sourcewell, whose cooperative purchasing contracts have been competitively solicited so that government agencies can utilize their contracts, which meet all state and federal public procurement requirements. Axon Enterprises Incorporated is a vendor that has an agreement with Sourcewell to provide their product at competitively bid public pricing. Contractors charge overhead and profit, approximately a 20% markup for all items they purchase. By purchasing the body-worn cameras from Axon Enterprises Incorporated through Sourcewell, the city can save approximately $300,000. Axon is a well-known company that has been providing technology to law enforcement agencies since 1993 and started providing body-worn cameras in 2008 as society pushed for more transparency with police interactions. Today, they support most police departments and sheriff's offices within the United States, including those agencies in San Mateo County. If the purchase is awarded as recommended, installation to commence within the next 2 months to be completed by October of 2021. Should a request for proposals be required, it is estimated there would be an additional 4 to 6 months added to the acquisition and implementation process. Cost of the body-worn camera and fleet camera program with Axon Enterprises through Sourcewell will not exceed $1,500,000. The council will see that's a little higher number than is on the staff report, and I am adding in the extra funding for contingencies that we may not know are coming. Both the community and council have demonstrated support for this program by approving Measure Q, which is dedicated towards emergency services and enhancements. In conclusion, staff is recommending City Council approve the implementation of a body-worn camera and patrol vehicle camera program for the Daly City Police Department and authorize the city manager to execute an agreement in a form acceptable to the city attorney to purchase the body-worn cameras from Axon Enterprises Incorporated through the purchasing cooperative Sourcewell. Staff is available to provide any additional information desired by the mayor or council members. Thank you.
Thank you for your report, Chief Hensley. At this point, I now would like to open this item for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. For those members of the public who wish to speak on this item, please click the raise hand feature. For those joining by phone, press *9 to raise your hand.
Mayor, is it possible to ask some questions before you go to public comment?
Sure.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, I wanted to know how many body cameras are you planning on purchasing? Also, how many of the vehicle cameras are you planning on purchasing? And then I have a question about the actual operation of the cameras itself. For instance, with respect to the body cameras, can you tell me if the cameras will automatically activate, or does it require the police officer to activate it themselves, leaving room for error that they don't activate it? So that's an issue. The other issue is what is the process of storing the video that's captured on the body cameras? Is it automatically sort of downloaded to the cloud, or is it does the officer have to do something to initiate the download of the video? And I'm also curious about the period of time of where the body camera video footage is preserved, and whether or not is there some kind of rule, regulation, or are we going to implement a procedure to preserve the contents of the video for a certain amount of time? And then with the camera itself, I'm sorry, with the vehicle camera itself, I'm interested in knowing, when is that activated? Is it activated from the inception of the police officer's duty, or is it activated only when it comes upon a scene, or does the officer have to activate it himself? So I'm interested in knowing, is there some kind of control as to its activation, or is it pretty much automatic? So those are my questions for now. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Buenaventura. For your first question regarding how many, we plan on purchasing 100 of the body worn cameras, 32 of the vehicle cameras. Those numbers will allow us to, number one, provide every police officer with their own camera, a camera actually assigned to them. And it will allow us to have some cameras in reserve in the event that officers are on a protracted event and the battery runs out and they don't have the ability to charge. We will have the ability to assign them another camera and hand them another camera so that they can keep on going. So it'll allow for damage to cameras, cameras that go down for repair, cameras go down for battery. We'll have extras on top of assigning one to every officer. Same goes with the 32 for the cars. That will allow every marked unit to have a camera in the cars, and it will also allow us to have some extra cameras in the event one of the cameras goes down. Regarding activation of those cameras. So on the body worn cameras, those are activated by the officer. So the cameras are always on. The second an officer picks a camera up off the charger and puts it on, the cameras are always on. For it to start recording and the system to know to retain that recording, the officer is required to actually engage the camera by pressing it twice. There's other triggers that we have built into the system that will automatically turn the camera on. As an example, a couple of those are, one, taser deployment. So if the officer pulls out the taser, it will automatically turn the camera on. And if the officer draws his or her firearm, it will automatically turn the camera on. So in the event of a high stress event, if those two resources are deployed, the cameras will automatically come on. Regarding downloading, the way the system works is it works off cell phone towers. So downloading is occurring all the time while the cameras are deployed out in the field. All of that data is retained in the cloud as part of the agreement we would have in place and as part of the system that we already have here with Axon. So the officers aren't required to do any downloading on their own. It'll either happen through cell towers or it will happen at the end of their shift when they take their camera off and place it back in the charger. The chargers are hooked up to data ports and all the information is automatically downloaded into our system. So there's nothing that the officers have to do other than at the end of the shift to put their cameras back on the charging system. It'll automatically download everything. Regarding retention policies, we will have policies in place. The one fortunate part of being one of the last agencies to implement body-worn cameras is many agencies have already figured out what works and what doesn't work in terms of retention and what those rules are. So we'll be following California Penal Code, City Municipal Code, and how long we retain that data. As an example, looking at the policies that we've been reviewing, the minimum times I've seen that data retained for non-evidence is 60 days. And then depending if it's a criminal case, that'll tie in with statute of limitations for court purposes. So it could be as little as 60 days data is retained, and it could be many, many, many years that it's retained depending on what the nature of that data was and what information or what the contact was. Regarding vehicle cameras, so the vehicle cameras will run all of the time. They also have automatic activation. So that will be tied to things like when the car doors open. They're running all the time anyway, but specifically when car doors open, when officers turn on any of their emergency lighting, those things will automatically trigger the recording aspect. So there's tools built into these resources to make sure that what we need to have recorded is recorded.
I guess my follow-up question is, so I understand with respect to the body cameras that there will be automatic triggering events, but I'm just wondering why does it have to be an automatic, a specific event, like if the officer pulls out his taser, or if some of the examples you cited, are you saying that it's going to be at the complete discretion of the officer whether or not to turn it on beyond those scenarios you pointed out? Or I guess what I'm interested in is why not have them on for for evidentiary sake, and for any issue that could come up. And I mean, that's the whole purpose of the body cameras, is to have sort of real-time evidence and have it video capture the incident. So I'm not really understanding why it has to be limited to just those few scenarios you mentioned. And so I'm asking for, is there are we going to have a policy that opens up the other circumstances, or are we going to have a policy where it's always recording? And I'm just curious about what other jurisdictions are doing.
Thank you, Councilmember Buenaventura. There will be a very solid policy behind this program and behind body-worn cameras and vehicle cameras. Again, you know, the fortunate part is we're coming in later, and there's a lot of really good policy right here in San Mateo County that's been tested and proven to be effective. And we're going to simply mirror that policy as we go through getting this program up and running. Officers will have mandates on specifically when they are to turn on those recorders. And if they choose not to follow policy, it'll be like any other policy in the police department, that if the officers choose not to follow it, there will be consequences to that. In the beginning, it'll be some training. And if training isn't effective, it will lead to discipline. So there's very, very clear guidelines on when officers will be required to record. And as a general rule, it's pretty much every contact that they have, the camera has to be on. There are exceptions to that, like if they're in a hospital, we don't record in a hospital due to HIPAA and the rules and privacy in a hospital. There may be certain crimes where you're interviewing a victim and the victim is choosing does not want to be recorded. In those cases, we may or may not record. So there's exemptions built into the policy, but the policy is very clear on when the officers are required to record. On the other side of that, there's a whole section in this policy that will cover auditing. So part of the responsibility of supervisors will be to ensure that their officers are following this policy and therefore doing audits to make sure that it's happening. And if not, to bring that officer in and find out why. So in the beginning, I suspect, like all other agencies, there's going to be a bit of a learning curve as we go through this, but I feel very confident at this point in how long body-worn cameras have been deployed all over the country, that our policy will make it very clear to officers what they're required to do, and will give us, in terms of the administration, the power to do audits to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Buenaventura, and your response, Chief, to that. Yeah, instinctively, that was one of the pieces I heard where it was only during kind of a taser or when, you know, maybe the gun is handled. And so that was my question, and similarly to Councilmember Buenaventura, that I would think that there would be policies around ensuring that there, you know, there is, it's continuously on, and that there's no, there would be no gaps, right? And so that's one of the pieces that um, I think it's important to understand what policies will be connected to the body cams. Any other questions from my colleagues at this time?
Mayor, I have a question.
Vice Mayor, please.
There's been some comments that I've received through public comment from past meetings, and a lot of the questions were relating on why the body cameras weren't implemented between 2016 and 2020, and if somebody can give like a timeline in terms of that gap or that void for the public.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. If you'd like, I'll go back and I can read that section out of the staff report that talked exactly about that. If you want, I'll be happy to refer back to that, and I can read that one more time if you like.
Sure. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. So in May of 2016, the San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury, that's the time they issued the report regarding the use of body-worn cameras. They recommended that agencies develop an implementation plan by November 30th of 2016 and actually implement, sorry, saving power in my office when I can, and actually implement the program, body-worn camera program, by October 31st of 2017. When the city responded to the San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury, we agreed they're a good idea and we would voluntarily implement that program as soon as funding became available, because funding was not available at that time. The next jump to the timeline would be in 2019, when City Manager Malpe recommended, with council support, to begin exploring the half-cent sales tax measure, which ultimately passed with support from the community and now known as Measure Q. Since that time at your retreat, the council has recommended moving forward with body-worn cameras. The police department fully supports that. And now that the measure has passed, we are in the place where we're ready to aggressively expedite that process.
On a follow-up question, I know that the police has one of the largest budgets in the city, and there's nothing within the police budget that can fund that besides Measure Q?
There's not at this time, Vice Mayor. Potentially there is always some salary savings in our budget. Probably have to check with the finance director regarding that. I'm not aware of what that is. But our budget right now would not be able to afford this program. We do not have that funding in our budget.
Thanks, Chief.
Welcome.
Thank you, Vice Mayor and Chief. Any other comments from my colleagues? If not, we will be moving to public comment. Okay, I see no unmuting at this time. So at this point, if there's no other comments from my colleagues, we'll be moving on to public comment. We have Leilani read the instructions for the public, please.
Thank you, Mayor. For those members of the public who wish to speak on this item, please click the raise hand feature. For those joining by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. I'll just give it a moment, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, it looks like we have 0 comments for this evening. Members of the public may still email their public comments to cityclerk@dalycity.org. That now closes public comment.
Thank you, Leilani, for that. Seeing no public comment, we can further a discussion. You know, for me, I think it's extremely important for us to move with this and expediting our body cams and dash cams for our police department. It's important for us to, and I'd like to know, you know, it was mentioned earlier, Chief, that the time frame is October 2021 to be able to, you know, I think get these. Is there any way to move even faster than that?
Thank you, Mayor. There may be. Our best guess at this point really is 4 to 6 months. So October would be the worst case scenario. That would be the 6-month timeframe. I feel relatively confident that we could get it done sooner than the 6-month timeframe. The one difference in that is that the vehicle cameras, we won't be getting those till the end of the year. We're catching Axon kind of in the middle between transitioning out of their older model car cameras and moving into their new. But the body worn cameras are ready to go. So I feel fairly confident that we'll be ready to go prior to October. But October would be worst case scenario if we can't get the cameras here as fast as we would like.
Okay, thank you. And then you mentioned that there is a specific type of camera. In the report, it just mentions Axon. Is there a specific camera that we will be procuring?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we're getting Axon's newest camera, which is called the Body 3. Axon Body 3. That's a camera we would like to purchase.
Okay, thank you. And then is it for the dash cams, is there a specific model in that regard?
Yes, the vehicle camera will be called the Fleet 3. Fleet 3. And that camera is not available at this moment.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions for this moment. I see Councilmember DiGiovanni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for the report. And I just want to start by thanking the voters and the community for supporting our Measure Q efforts, and that proactively this has been looked into to really expedite it. It shows that from the conception where this council, and just to give Dr. Rod, of our Vice Mayor, a little bit of background, that in 2016, as the chief referred to, we had a prior city manager and a prior, obviously, council. The only one at that time, obviously, was Councilmember Buenaventura. And that's when things were happening. I was in the community, and it was pretty intense, where it was being shut down, our outsourced 911. It's being shut down at that time, that current person, who is now not Sean Amalby, kept saying that we didn't have the money and that departments were cut in half. Staffing was in almost every department, Vice Mayor. It was really sad. And that's when, remember, our 911 went to the county. Our Engine 95 was shut down. So yes, we were told that there was no money, and it was pretty bad. And there actually was going to be, at that time, some employees laid off. So it was pretty intense. So now we're moving forward, and the timeline is very encouraging. Thank you, PD. Thank you, Chief. Thank my colleagues. So we went to the council retreat, and that is current, and our city manager, that we worked on it and got Measure Q passed unanimous with a pretty large vote from our community, our Daly city, who knows the importance of public safety and realizes that, how much what we do need, and defined it as such in Measure Q. And those funds are what we promised in Measure Q. We have an obligation to use those funds for this item. So that is something that we promised the voters, and it's a legal thing. And plus we did promise, and this council wants to make sure we follow on our promise and our obligations. So to fund with those kind of fundings. So I thank you, and I look forward to moving forward. And we are obligating and fulfilling our goals as a council as we did in the retreat. And the voters have spoken of Daly City. And this is our Daly City community. I just want to remind everyone that it's great to have people speak and support or whatever, but it's our Daly City community. So I appreciate that. So thank you, Madam Mayor and Chief, PD, Council, City Manager, City Attorney, and everyone that worked on this, and our voters in Daly City. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I have another question, Chief. What is the protocol on the release of video evidence? I know that some states, or it all, I guess every specific jurisdiction has different times of releasing videos. I know people in Minnesota have different times of releasing video, and I'm just curious, is there protocols in the county in terms of like the time of release of evidence or video evidence?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I may ask the city attorney to weigh in if I get any of this incorrect, but the release of the video is governed by California government code and by state law, both. So if it's a public request for video, it would go through the normal Public Records Act request process for that to happen, which involves redaction, depends on whether or not it's an active criminal investigation. There's a lot of factors to it. It's also governed by penal code, and the California Penal Code says, as of this year or last year, says body worn camera footage must be released in terms of a critical incident within 45 days. And that's California state law.
Is it different in terms of county?
No, there are no separate, we all go by California government code and California penal code.
That's it for me, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you, Chief. I see Councilmember Benaventura.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So my concern is about undue delay. And I hear from the chief that we're probably going to get it before the 6-month period of October. That's obviously my goal, my request. But I don't want any hiccups. And what I mean by that is I'd like some kind of verification or commitment on the part of Axon that they have the body cameras in stock and ready to deliver once the contract is signed and we have procured it in a transactional way. So, but I also would like a plan B because I don't want any, like I said, hiccups, and I would really like this to go forward without any delay. So if there's nothing wrong with scoping out other vendors to make sure that we get something going sooner rather than later. And then in addition, I would like, so I'm just talking about the body cameras part because obviously the installation of the mobile cameras on the vehicle is much harder, and I can understand there's much longer delay for that. And then with respect to the use of the camera itself, I don't really want us to wait for the training of it until we get the cameras, because I think that would also cause some delay. And I would rather we we are able to start using the cameras as soon as possible at the moment we get them. And so I think advanced preparation of what the officers need to do to get used to it and to know the proper policy and procedure, some of that work can be done earlier and not just upon delivery. And then I do think that what the council should be doing almost immediately is to really set forth a policy of when we want this camera turned on. And I understand from the chief's explanation that the cameras are always on and pretty much they're always recording. But what concerned me was the few circumstances where they were automatically recording that triggered that, because I can see situations start as sort of, not that all serious, but then it can quickly erupt into something much more. And I don't want that camera not operating because it started out as something completely innocuous and but it might be too late for an officer to turn it on or for the system to activate automatically. So, so I would, yeah. So I think body cameras are important, and I think we should do something now. And so, if Mayor, if you're looking for a motion, I make the motion right now.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Bonaventura, for that. I, in regards to the motion, I do want to follow up in a friendly amendment to that. I know it's in the acquiring that, but then I'd like to mention that we would be looking and adopting a policy. So like putting the next steps on there and making sure that it's expedited. And I know we have to look at kind of those next steps, but like you said, if the cameras are there but there's no policy in place, then there's going to be a lag time. So I think that's where I'm at. I need to a friendly amendment to make sure that the next steps according with the purchase of the body cameras, we have that down the pipeline.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with everything that you said, and I welcome your amendments.
So I hear your adoption, and so your adoption of it is basically for the purchase of implementing the body cameras. What is the exact motion? Is it the motion to implement body worn and patrol vehicle camera program for the Daly City Police Department?
Yes, Madam Mayor, with your amendments.
Okay, Attorney Zimmerman, I see you on camera. Do you have any comments?
I do want to, and I apologize if I didn't catch it. I just wanted to make sure the staff recommendation this evening with the friendly amendment, Madam Mayor, is that we do have the implementation of the body worn cameras and the patrol camera program for the Daly City Police Department, and also authorize the city manager to execute agreement to purchase the body worn cameras with Axon Enterprises through the purchasing cooperative Sourcewell.
Okay, so that should be all combined in one.
Yes,
okay.
If I may.
Great. So, and with the amendment and also with city attorney mentioning the specificity around the sole source with Axon.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I think what's important is that we get this as soon as possible. And I hear that collectively from folks on here that we would like to see this as soon as possible. And if there's any way to also look at training simultaneously while we're waiting for the cameras, to see how that can occur. Also, what was mentioned was, I think if there is we need to have a plan B if this doesn't happen. How can we make sure there's a plan B? We're now saying we're going to go sole source, but then there needs to also be a plan B if this doesn't happen. And so I think that's just something that staff needs to take note of. You know, that there's other cameras out there, like companies such as Reveal or whatnot, but just in case that this didn't follow our timeline.
Just for clarification, Madam Mayor, this is not a sole source. This is Sourcewell is a cooperative that has several vendors that go through the RFP process. So this isn't specifically a sole source. It's just the chosen vendor through Sourcewell.
Through Sourcewell. Okay,
Yes.
Great.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember DiGiovanni.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So I understand like Councilmember Buenaventura and yourself and or mentioned about like how like you wanted the training, but how do you train with something that is like not even the new model yet and it hasn't even gotten here yet? How does, I mean, I don't know, asking that, is that, I don't know, Chief, isn't that a little, because you haven't even received it and it is the new model. So it's going to have something that's going to be different.
DiGiovanni, I think that we're trying to see if there's any ways around training prior to the receiving of it, if it's possible. You know, I think, you know, I'm more of an optimistic person and seeing if there's possibilities of expediting and being able to see there's ways that this can be done prior.
Yeah,
right?
I do.
So we're not, I don't think it's a mandate that we're doing. I think what's happening is we're saying if there's a possibility.
Well, I'm optimistic, but I just want to be realistic and in this thing where we're ordering the new models and things might be a little bit different, but that's just where I'm at. Okay, thank you.
I don't really see what's so unrealistic about trying to train our officers in advance. When you have a product, you usually have, before that product is released, the company usually has a training system before it's released that's already been fully developed that they usually will share and can share either in its written form, in its video form, in its training form. And so I don't really see an issue about trying to get our officers trained well in advance of receiving the actual product. I imagine a situation like this, once we receive the product, if we didn't ask for it in advance, we'd get it. And I just don't see a problem or an issue with trying to get it earlier. I'm sure it exists. I'm sure other agencies have gone through similar training. I can't see how dramatically it's any different from other cameras. And so I think any argument for delaying the training doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And
with all due respect, I never said anything about delaying the training. I just was trying to clarify how it worked.
I don't think we need
with all due respect, and let me finish, that I would be respectful.
Councilmember DiGiovanni, actually, Councilmember Buenaventura was talking and then you interrupted
No,
him.
I was not finished from prior, from when you started talking, with all due respect, Mayor, I was asking the question and you were answering me at that time, then Mr. Councilmember Buenaventura, to be clear, because I never even got a chance to finish, with all due respect, what I was trying to say to clarify. That's all I was trying to do. And I was just going to ask the chief if that, I never said anything about it being an issue. I never said I was against anything. So I would appreciate letting me finish and not twist anything. Thank you very much. But through the chief, I would like to ask, is it possible to do the simultaneous training? And he would know better than the rest of us.
You mean through the mayor and then through the chief? Okay.
Yes, but I was already doing that before everybody else started chiming in on what I was saying. Thank you. Appreciate the, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Would you mind please explaining that? If there's possible to do the
Thank you, Councilmember DiGiovanni.
And how would that work?
So Redwood City Police Department are just a little bit ahead of us. So they're in the process now of implementing Axon body worn cameras, the same cameras that we're going to be purchasing. We have already arranged with the Redwood City Police Department
Great.
to attend their trainings to get our train the trainer officers prepared and ready to go. So that's already happening.
Right.
We're already doing that. We have a firm commitment from Axon that the cameras are available and will be ready to ship. We're just waiting for that approval to go through. And once we know it's funded, the cameras will be here. Really, the most challenging part at this point for us is not the cameras and not the training or the policy, quite honestly. It's infrastructure. So remember, we have to figure out how to get this bank of 100 chargers for the cameras, find a place to put it. We have to have ISD get data ports to all of those charging units. We have to get the body-worn camera to communicate with our CAD system, computer-aided dispatch system. And then we have to get the CAD system to communicate with our records management system. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And we're already making those arrangements as we speak. But I don't think the holdup will be cameras, training, or policy. That's why I feel optimistic that it will happen before 4 months, and it will happen as fast as we can possibly make it happen. We've been on the phone all day today trying to expedite this process.
Thank you, Chief. And that's a clarification as to Redwood City so that people know that. That's all I was looking for. And I appreciate that, the time and the PD being proactive in working with Redwood City. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, I'll ask the city attorney to read the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is my understanding that the motion is to approve the implementation of the body-worn cameras and patrol vehicle program for the City of Daly City Police Department, and also authorize the city manager to execute an agreement in the form acceptable to the city attorney through the purchase of body-worn cameras from Axon Enterprises through the purchasing cooperative Sourcewell. My understanding is that there's also a friendly amendment that, to the extent that the officers can engage in pre-training prior to implementing the policies, to expedite that process as quickly as and efficiently as possible. Does that sound about right, Madam Mayor?
Yes, thank you for adding that. And I see, well, Councilmember Bonaventura, do you still have a comment after? I see your,
No, I'm sorry, no, I'm good with that.
Okay, great. And I see Vice Mayor has his hand raised.
Yeah. Before we vote, I just want to, talk about, like, we are in a different world, and despite what people may say that Daly City is its own and the Daly City exceptionalism, but we're not exempt from what is going around in the nation. And I think that what the public wants is police accountability. They want transparency. And I think that with body-worn cameras and with the car video cameras, it brings us one step closer to that. It's hard to, for me to muster, like, seeing a lot of money going towards body-worn cameras, because I could see it being spent for different things, such as more social workers for crisis management, money for the libraries, rec, youth services, senior services. But I think that from the outcry from the community and seeing the numerous letters that were talking for body-worn cameras, I think our decision today is bringing one closer step to police accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, for your comment. And I think we are in this place to make sure there's more transparency and accountability, and we are in that step. And I think that it's a collaborative effort on all of us to continue to have transparency and accountability in our communities. So thank you, Vice Mayor. At this point, may we have roll call, please, to pass this. Councilmember Ventura.
No, I was just ready to vote.
Okay.
Ventura.
Oh. I'm sorry, clerk, I can't hear you.
Mr. Buenaventura.
Thank
Aye.
you.
You're welcome. Dr. Rod,
Aye.
Ms. DiGiovanni,
Aye.
Ms. Manalo.
Aye. Thank you very much. It's unanimous from the council members that are present this evening. And so thank you for your work this evening. Thank you to staff. Thank you for the presentation. And, we know that there's more work ahead, and we will continue to do so. Good evening.
Good night.